The cost of running Guantanamo Bay's prison and court system jumped by nearly $90 million from 2013 to 2018, even as the number of prisoners there has decreased. That's according to a new analysis from Carol Rosenberg at the New York Times, and she joins us on the phone now from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Carol, welcome back to the NewsHour. Help us understand that. The number of prisoners has gone down, but somehow the cost has gone up. How is that possible?
There's a number of things going on. The prison buildings were set up as temporary expeditionary war on terror sites, and they opened, as you know, in 2002, and many of the buildings and structures that they've been using are that much older and have needed repairs and replacement and maintenance. The price of keeping a soldier, mostly National Guard, in uniform and has also gone up across the years. And this detention center of 40 prisoners has 1,800 soldiers. That's 45 troops for every prisoner. 1,800 soldiers plus a staff of probably around 300 or more civilian contractors. In addition, Guantanamo is just plain expensive. You know, it's down here in Cuba. Everything comes in by airplane or barge. Everything has a markup. Construction has a markup. This is an extremely isolated, expensive place to run this kind of operation.
Carol, those prisoners that are left there now, I imagine as they stay there longer, and we don't know exactly what will happen next, you've outlined in your report that it costs more to care for older prisoners. Explain that part of the equation to me.
We've had a number of instances in recent years of healthcare conditions that have required the military, the Navy medical unit, to call in experts. They've been doing them for a while, but, you know, as people age, they get, for example, colonoscopies. They get basic heart condition treatment and care. There's one prisoner here who had a degenerative disc disease that ended up with him being paralyzed in his cell, incontinent, and the U.S. military mounted a surgical suite of a neurosurgeon to fix his back, or at least to start working on his spine. And after that one surgery, he needed 4 more down here across the span of 8 or 9 months. Every complicated medical procedure that takes place down here, it relies on people coming in to carry it out.
Well, Carol, tell me about those 40 men you mentioned. Why are they still there? How many of them are facing charges? And what about the rest who haven't been charged?
So the first thing to understand is that Guantanamo started off and functions kind of like a POW site, a prisoner of war site. It is not a presumption that all of them are guilty of war crimes. The U.S. brought them here as POWs of this unusual war, saying they wanted to take them off the battlefield. Then among them, they found a certain number, or they brought a certain number that they wanted to charge with war crimes. Best known probably are the 5 men accused of conspiring in the 9/11 attacks. But the majority of them are men who I've come to call the forever prisoners. They're indefinite detainees in this war on terror. People have called it the forever war because, in part, there's nobody on the other side to surrender. How do you end this war on terror? So these men, many of them, may be here for the rest of their lives. And what's happened under President Trump is that the military recognized that this is no longer expeditionary or temporary detention. They're planning for enduring detention. They're planning for another 20 or so years of holding these men. As you probably recall, President Obama said he wanted to close it. He wanted to move some of the men to the United States and hold them in either military or federal detention sites, depending on how they would be charged or held. And Congress blocked it. The political will in the United States is to keep them here. So under the Trump administration, the Pentagon is planning to hold them, if not forever, for the next 20 or so years.
Carol, few reporters have covered Guantanamo Bay as deeply and as extensively as you have. Do you see any future in which Guantanamo Bay is actually closed?
Well, certainly not, because first of all, this is a functioning naval station. It's a Navy base. 6,000 people live here, sailors and their families, contractors. Of the 6,000, 2,000 are associated with that prison of 40 prisoners. And there's been no will by any of these administrations to want to get out of the base. It's got an airstrip and a port, and the Pentagon considers it a strategic asset. But if you're asking whether or not I foresee them closing the prison and getting rid of the last prisoner, to me it's unimaginable.
That is Carol Rosenberg of the New York Times joining us on the phone from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Thank you, Carol.
My pleasure.